Hey folks, and welcome back to some more Genshin Impact. On our last episode, we had managed to accrue some evidence to help us in our trial to help prove Lyney and Lynette's innocence, but we also met a new face in Navia, home of which will be providing some assistance in this case. So, with that wee tidbit in mind, let us continue henceforth and, well, start participating in the trial. Because I already did the whole time waiting stuff. Oh, it's just right down there.
What do we do? The whole situation is so confusing.
Oh, are we going to do the whole thought mechanic from Sumeru? I do have some thoughts.
Good plan. Impossible things don't just happen. We'll get to the truth one way or another.
Just relax. Even if everyone else suspects Lyney and Lynette, at least we will be supporting them from the stands.
Yeah.
Besides, I doubt Farina understands any more about what happened than we do.
Thanks, Navia. Well, we'll be going then.
Best of luck to you.
Ah, finally, you're back. Well, how did your investigation go?
It was pretty fruitful, I'd say.
To be honest, you might be disappointed.
Really? I guess we didn't really get anything concrete, though. Well, we did get a bountiful amount. We didn't really get anything concrete enough, huh?
No. We're already very grateful that you were willing to help.
Well now, don't you all look disappointed? Don't tell me that your investigation came up empty-handed.
Okay now, little Bessie, no need for all that sass, okay?
That was to be expected, of course. The guilty can never produce proof of their innocence. But don't let that stop you. I shall be terribly disappointed should you, my most anticipated foe, concede so easily.
Oh, just you wait, little Bessie.
Since both parties are present, I declare that the trial regarding the magic show incident is now in session. Firstly, in order for the audience to understand the causes and results of the incident, could we please have Mr. Lyney explain the trick?
Yes, of course. I will explain while Lynette demonstrates on stage. All the necessary items have been prepared.
Thank you, Mr. Lyney. In that case, I take your statement to be that you ran to and remained hidden within the magic box in the audience stands once the trick began, and thus could not have committed the crime. Is this correct?
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor.
In that case, I call upon the prosecution. Lady Farina, do you wish to refute his statement in any way?
Why, of course I do. Allow me to take the first shot and break this case wide open. Mr. Lyney is clearly lying. There is no way you could have been in the box the whole time if you were to abduct Halsey and murder Cowell. In fact, I'd say you were hardly in that tunnel at all.
Quite the accusation.
That is simply your hypothesis based on the presumption that I'm guilty.
Oh, is that so? And if I may ask, what did you hear while you were inside your box?
The roaring countdown of the crowd, of course. That's how I kept track of the time and built anticipation for the finale.
And you didn't hear anything else at all? Nothing that might leave an impression of any kind?
No, nothing.
I like the dynamic camera work here, including the split shots. It's a really nice touch.
I see. But when the count reached 30 seconds or so, there was a thud. One so loud that I believe practically everyone heard it.
It's a nice touch. Like, it just adds to it.
Huh?
Hey, hang on. Something's not right
How could Lenny not know about that sound?
Yeah, I'm sure he could have heard a noise that loud from inside the box.
I was right by the box and I definitely heard the thud.
Look at those scales. Could those mean...
They probably represent the Oratrici's stance on the trial. Oh, that's so neat as a visual representation of how things are going.
Well then, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to use the words of the magician himself. You never know what can happen in the blink of an eye. Indeed, it seems his alibi can also collapse in the blink of an eye. Of course, I have armed myself to do far more than smash your alibi. Confidence cannot go unfounded, and my foundations are rock solid. Tell me, aren't you and Lynette actually from the House of the Hearth?
The House of the Hearth?
They're Fatui? Wait, what? Huh?
No wonder they did something like this.
I was not expecting that twist. Wait, what?
So the serial disappearances were the Fatui's doing. Now it all makes sense.
The only Fatui member that I remember hearing about that does abductions of any sorts, although... Arlecchino? I mean, they could be somewhat appropriate, huh?
I've got a feeling that what happened on stage probably wasn't just an accident.
That's irrelevant. Our identities have nothing to do with what happened.
Indeed. Then perhaps you could tell us everything that happened during that 1 minute.
Although, in a way, that's also really neat that we could get some Fatui-related characters playable that aren't simply Harbingers, though, right? Because I generally thought that we were only going to get Harbingers as far as the playable crew goes. But I guess it would kind of make sense to give us some off-branches, kind of like how you have these second-in-command of the varying nations, or at least the ones closest to the Archons, in a sense, right? Like how we have Yaimiko, to name one such example, to represent that for Inazuma.
Your first priority is to prove yourself innocent, after all. I'm sure there is little that needs to be kept secret now. Unless your script already has holes in it. The Outlander is speechless. My, oh my, don't they look flabbergasted? Now comes the infighting and discord, I suppose. This was almost too easy. Good thing I made all those preparations. Seems the all-nighter I pulled last night is really paying off.
Hey, Lenny, why didn't you tell us this before?
Minnie and Lynette are Fatui, but not all Fatui are necessarily bad though, right?
Order! Order! Mr. Linney, allow me to re-establish the facts. Lady Farina has raised 2 points. First, when the thud was heard in the Opera House, you were neither in the box nor the tunnel. Second, you and Ms. Lynette are both members of the House of the Hearth. Are these claims true?
There's no doubt about a magician's ability to con others. Given how Linny has concealed his identity, this could have all been set up beforehand. Plus, Child is here in Fontaine along with other house operatives. There must be some scheme at work here. I've been a victim of such schemes before, and now...
Please answer my question, Mr. Linney.
I'm sorry. Yes, they're true, Your Honor.
I knew it!
Well, that's it. We might as well move on to the sentencing already.
What should we do now?
Permission to speak, Your Honor.
Granted.
My client has withheld some key information.
In that case, what is your request?
I request a brief adjournment. There are things that must be discussed.
Is that really necessary? They're already as good as guilty.
I wouldn't write them off just yet.
The defendant deceived their own attorneys. What is there left to discuss?
Order! Order, I say! Your request is reasonable, and we shall adjourn. This trial will reconvene in 1 hour.
So you would stick to Mr. Linney's defense even after knowing what you do now? You certainly have more professionalism than I thought.
It also helps that our traveler is quite the nice individual.
In that case, my dear audience, let's allow the joy of victory to steep for a little while longer.
While court is adjourned, you meet with Linny and Lynette backstage in the Opera House.
Well, this is awkward. I didn't think the Hydro Archon would dig all that up. I'm sorry, Traveler and Paimon.
Yeah, sorry.
This also does show another side of Farina, though, because that also means that Farina is completely willing to just meet, to make ends meet in her favor when need be, and she's very much willing to double down on something to, well, add to it. Which also means that she can be a hard-working individual when she needs to be, which is neat to see, honestly.
Paimon doesn't know where to start. We trusted you two.
But in a sense, them revealing that they are also in relation to Fatui could also dampen their friendship with us if we're not so accepting. I mean, we already saw the rather negative responses everybody had to just them being mentioned being associated with the Fatui. And, well, yeah, I mean, that's wholly justified in a world where the Fatui have gone up to some really bad things, especially if you hear what's been going on behind the scenes, whether it be the disaster that was things happening in Inazuma, for example, with the delusions, or how they almost drowned an entire nation in Liyue, right? Or how they stole a Gnosis in Mondstadt. There's a lot of bad things that could happen. I'm not sure if the full details of what happened in Sumeru got caught to light, though, because, well, who knows if the stuff about the Tori got revealed, right? But either way, it is still... It's very condemning, right? It's hard to say you're Fatui, but not necessarily a bad one, right?
We based our entire reasoning on the assumption that you weren't bad guys.
I still wouldn't call them that, though.
Not to set the wrong tone or anything, but Paimon's really mad!
I'm very sorry. I know you're angry, and reasonably so, but please, let me explain. I know you've clashed with the Fatui several times before. I wouldn't be surprised if just hearing the word is enough to make you upset. But our organization is very, very large, and the Harbingers have very different personalities and goals.
Right now, we want to save people. As many as we can.
That's right. I'm sure we're on the same page when it comes to this nation and the disaster that its people might face. I knew if it weren't for our respective identities, we could become good friends. That's why I didn't wish to flat out lie to you, but chose to hide some details instead.
Yeah, so it really was about the whole stigma that comes with being associated with the Fatui then. Honestly, it's understandable in a sense, because being fully upfront about it could have just led to some discord amongst us from the get-go.
The truth is very important, but being completely transparent about everything would see us spending more effort than we need to.
But then a scenario like this goes where we're just riddled with skepticism now, though. Yeah, when it comes to light. So, how can we know this isn't all just another lie?
Right. So, you be the judge. Heck, if I were you, I fear that I'd even struggle to trust me at this point. You met a Fatus who works as a magician, a trickster by trade. All by coincidence, too. But still, I'm asking you to trust me. I am no criminal. At least, not in this case.
Sorry. Please forgive us.
Well, you both say that, but...
Explain the other issue first.
Right. Let's hear your answer first, and no lies now!
Of course. I'll answer any question you ask. We've been trying to find out how the Oratrice operates. We want to know why it has a consciousness. Why can it deliver sentences accurately? During our investigations, we learned that the machine's core is beneath it. From that moment on, Lynette and I have been designing this box swap trick, with the objective of getting close to the core.
Oh, okay, so there was another motive behind it.
Is that why you needed a whole minute?
That's right. In truth, the audience would take about 75 seconds to count down from 60, while I would only need 15 to get to the opposite box. So, after jumping into the tunnel, I accessed the Opera House basement via the vent, and went to investigate the room in which the core is stored.
That air vent was created during the construction of the tunnel specifically to execute this step.
And what did you find?
Well, nothing. As soon as I reached that room and was about to investigate, I heard someone's voice. Which should have been impossible, of course. I was quite certain that I was the only one in the room. That voice seemed to recognize me and tried to speak to me. I chose to err on the side of caution and retreated the way I came. On the way back, I saw the broken vase and the clothes on the ground, but the countdown was almost finished, so there wasn't time to give it any thought. After that, the homicide occurred just as you saw.
Well, that explains why you didn't hear the thud.
But why do you want to understand how the Oratrice operates? Probably for some kind of mission?
Because of that prophecy I told you about, of course. We must know all we can about this nation's secrets in order to deal with that prophesized crisis.
That's the only way we can save everyone.
So, there you have it. The whole truth. I swear, I didn't hide anything from you this time. It was never my wish to proceed under this cloud of mistrust either. But like I said earlier, you can be the judge. If you want to leave because you don't trust the Fatui, there's nothing I can do to stop you.
Well, Traveler, you decide. Paimon will follow your lead however you choose.
I believe in the facts. I will defend you from these charges.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for giving us a chance.
The current problem is that the scales are tipped pretty badly against you two.
You know, that's another thing I just thought about as well. That also means that Lynette is our first 4-star playable Fatui member. But not only that, she's literally handed out for free. That's so interesting. I hope we get more. Like, just more in general.
If we want to refute the Hydro Archon's accusations, we're gonna need a seriously watertight defense.
Actually, we already have the key evidence we need.
Huh?
The adjournment's almost over. Let's go back.
Oh, Paimon thinks she gets what you mean.
Linny's statement. Linny claims that he headed to the chamber containing the Oratrice core upon entering the tunnel, and did not witness the crime taking place, and thus did not hear the thud. The voice in the Oratrice core chamber. Linny claims to have heard a mysterious voice within the chamber that houses the Oratrice core within the Opera House's underground structures. Okay. So let's keep on keeping on.
Both parties have returned to their positions. Let us continue the trial. When last we left off, Mr. Linney acknowledged the new evidence presented by Lady Farina as fact. Therefore, Lady Farina may continue stating her reconstruction of the events.
That took long enough. Now then, if everyone would lend me their attention. At this stage, let's revisit that scene from Linny's perspective.
Based on the opposition's account of events, you can identify loopholes in their statement. Oh, there's an actual gameplay aspect to this? Use evidence and clues obtained during the investigation to refute any erroneous assertions of facts and replace them with new inferences. Use your refutations to convince the audience and obtain more support from the people. The oratrice will display such shifts clearly. When you find and refute all incorrect content, you can complete the cycle of refutation and unveil the truth. Interesting.
As the countdown began, he entered the tunnel. When the flatbed trolley passed, he opened the box and got into an altercation with Halsey, which caused the loud thud. He did not realize that this sound could be heard by everyone in the opera house, which is why he claimed earlier that he could not hear the sound. Finally, he used the vase to knock her out, before making her change clothes to prevent others from recognizing her. At this time, Cowell arrived in the tunnel, having heard that strange noise, and caught Linny red-handed. So Linny proceeded to knock him out too before stuffing him into that box. Afterward, Linny passed the unconscious Halsey to his accomplice through the magic box in the audience stands, before operating the devices such that Cowell's death would be ruled an accident.
Interesting. That seems so radical, though.
And there you have it. That's the truth behind what happened.
Does the defendant's side have any objections to Lady Farina's description of the events?
The key to refuting Lady Farina is the order of events. What Linny experienced and what he saw.
Identify loopholes. The voice claims to have heard a mysterious voice. Interesting.
According to Linny, he left via the vent after entering the tunnel. He couldn't have had that altercation with Halsey.
Yeah, I figured there was that. Linny knocked Halsey out using the vase and removed her clothes to prevent her from being identified. However, was Linny really in the tunnel at that time? Oh, you can't reuse it. Okay, so it's just these 5. Cole walked in on Linny, so the latter knocked him out with the vase, leading to the victim's death. The existing evidence indicates that when Linny returned to the tunnel, crime had already taken place and all Linny saw was...
Linny did not
clothes.
take part in the underground altercation. He only witnessed traces of the aftermath.
On-stage accident. A meticulously designed magic prop activated, causing the water tank to crash down and make everything seem like an accident. Linny claims to have heard a mysterious voice from the opera.
Linny went to the room that contains the Oratrice's core. This is the actual truth.
Attention! Ace Detective Paimon has something to say!
Oh?
When the countdown started, Linny did indeed go into the tunnel. But he immediately used a vent to access the Opera House basement, which is where the underground core of the Oratrice is stored. Once he reached that area, he heard a voice in what should have been an empty room. Since he felt something was amiss, he returned immediately. The crime scene had already developed by the time he reached the tunnel again, and in order to complete the magic trick, he did not remain there for any length of time. Finally, he reached the surface, and that was when the accident happened from his point of view. Therefore, he's innocent!
That was interesting. I liked that.
Paimon did it! Paimon actually managed to say all that! Wasn't it awesome?
I guess that mystery novel really was paying off, huh?
In other words, you believe that he knew nothing of the incident?
Yup.
That's right!
Moreover, I believe my opposition's reasoning is flawed.
My reasoning?
The onstage equipment was clearly tampered with in a premeditated fashion.
If that's the case, then if Cowell hadn't entered the tunnel, who was the entire setup meant to kill? Assuming that what you say is true, Lenny only needed to kidnap the young girl to cause a new disappearance case. What would the point of killing someone on stage be?
Oh, they have a point.
That's right, you tell him! And that's why they're partners of mine. They've managed to turn things around.
Lady, well, I get that you're gorgeous and all. I've only known you for like an episode ago.
Oh, well, your denial is very strident, I'll give you that. But what proof do you have to back your claims?
Do you happen to remember how you refuted Lenny's alibi initially?
Of course I do. If he had been in the magic box the whole time, how could he have not heard that sound? Why do you ask? You're saying that he wasn't?
Your claim has now become my weapon. Oh gosh! Which is the evidence that Lenny wasn't in the tunnel when the crime took place? Oh lord! You have to read everything? Irrelevant, 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 irrelevant. Interesting. There's one unknown. Irrelevant. Halsey's the missing person. She's a famous painter and came to watch the magic show in order to take a break from her own creative work. She isn't known to have been entangled in quarrels with any of the members of that. So this was what was up in there.
Are you sure we don't need to give this more thought?
Oh, okay. So it just says it's nothing. These are all irrelevant. Entrances and exits?
Are you sure we don't need
No.
to give this more thought?
Yeah, I figured. Okay. Strange sound. On the inside, magic box structure. On stage. No, these are all irrelevant. So it has to be this then, right?
That's right! Lenny wasn't in the box or in the tunnel. That's why he didn't hear anything strange during the performance.
You know, I was on point for the other one, when sorting out the other tidbits when I was refuting Furida's claims, and then I got 2 strikes here, holy moly. I wasn't quite an ace attorney this time.
This means that when the crime happened, Lenny had already entered the basement via the vent. The same clue you used to disprove his alibi has now become the best proof! How do you like that?
Oh, for Pete's sakes, Paimon.
Well played. To think you'd use such logic. Well then, if it wasn't Lenny who committed the crimes, then who was it?
Oh, on the defensive, are we? The murderer was... Select the gear icons in the interface to check the corresponding case questions. Select answers and fill all the empty gears to verify the correctness of your deduction. If you have made mistakes, you must make another selection from the remaining options. Once you answered all the questions correctly, you can complete this logic chain. Oh, golly gee! The guard's investigation report indicates that the fireworks released near the end of the show ignited and burned through the rope surrounding the water tank above the stage. This caused the water tank to fall and kill Cole in the box below. If Lenny is no longer under suspicion, and only the other members of the troupe would be able to tamper with the props. Lenny gave a detailed account of how the trick was supposed to work by using a box inside a box. The idea was for the box container the audience member to be transported across via a tunnel underneath, and Lenny himself would also use this tunnel to get to the other side. Having changed her outfit, Lynette and her assistant would also take charge of onstage interactions. The clothes belonging to Halsey, the lady who went missing, were found in the tunnel. The reason for this remains unknown. What's this?
Could there have been a third person involved? Is that really a possibility? Halsey is the missing person and an ordinary audience member. Or did she have her own scheme all along? The deceased's name is Cowell, Lenny's assistant. He would have been able to tamper with the equipment.
I'm so convinced it's her.
Halsey is the missing person and...
No. Okay, so it had to have been a third person then, right? Oh wait, it could have been Cowell in a sense, right? Because the face could have been used in an act of self-defense.
The deceased's name is Cowell.
Okay, so it was self-defense. And then he was knocked out.
Huh? That can't be right. Are you serious? The killer was, in fact, Cowell, the deceased!
Oh, is that so? How interesting! Let's hear your reasoning then.
What I must do next is recreate the truth. What Cowell did, and how he went from would-be perpetrator to victim.
How can we envisage Lenny as having been able to interfere with the crime?
No one entered or left the opera house through its entrances. So, where would the criminal have wanted to take Halsey? The deceased's name is Cowell. Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel. So, there must have been some fear that she would attract attention. The sound we heard may have come from a clash between the missing Halsey and the criminal. Lenny was not in the tunnel at that moment, which gave our criminal ample time. It would have been tough for both people to fit into that vent. They would likely have bumped into Lenny as well.
Oh. So it's like this.
It would have been tough for both people to fit into that.
No. Can I not? If I click
No
it...
one entered or left the...
Oh, you have to actually do that. Okay.
Lenny was not in the tunnel. Lenny was not in the tunnel at that moment, which gave our criminal ample time.
Yeah, so probably
It would have been tough for both people to fit into that vent. They would likely have bumped into Lenny as well.
Oh gosh, where did the missing house go?
The sound we heard may have come from a clash, but no one entered or left the opera house through its entrances.
That is a point. Where did the missing house go?
It would have been tough for both people to fit into that vent. They would likely have bumped into Lenny as well. The sound we heard may have come from a clash between... Lenny was not in the tunnel at that moment, which...
Yeah, he wasn't at the tunnel at the time.
The sound we heard may have... Lenny was not in the tunnel Lenny was not in the tunnel.
Yeah, so it's just that. Okay. So where did the missing Halsey go?
It would have been tough for both people to fit into that vent. They would likely have bumped into Lenny as well.
Probably the vent itself. Who's the prime suspect currently?
The deceased's name is Cowell, Lenny's assistant. He...
No. Okay, so we got 3, right?
No one entered or left the opera house.
Okay, so that's alright. Wait, the dress is the correct one?
Halsey's clothing was in the tunnel.
Oh, she put on different clothes. No? The criminal must have understood the methods behind Lenny's magic trick and must have been in a position to easily modify the equipment. So why did that work? 3 out of 4 were correct, right? Leaving aside how he died, Carl had all the means to commit the crime at his disposal. Oh, was that scripted so then we would have a revelation? The strange noise could likely have been the sound of Carl and Halsey struggling. Lenny was not in the tunnel for 1 minute. This would have given time for Carl to bring Halsey out of the magic box in the audience stands. But according to the guard's testimony, no one entered or left the opera house, so even if he had taken her, there'd be no means of exiting. Exit from the box would have been in the full view of the audience, pretty much guaranteeing that they would be discovered.
What's wrong, Traveler? Are you still having trouble figuring things out?
Where in the world did Halsey go?
I see how it is. So this was all just a bluff. And here I thought you had something to show for it. But it seems you're still far from the truth.
Look, since we're at a dead end, why not consider a different track? Just like the trick as it transpired, the end result must have been utterly different from the magician's initial design.
If only we knew how Halsey disappeared. Well, that would be nice, but the tunnel only has 3 exits, and none of them seem very likely. And it's not like this is a magic trick where you can just make a real live person disappear. You know, like you did from that water tank, Lynette.
Magic? Escaping from the water tank? Wait, could it have been the water?
Excuse my interruption, dear opponents. But do you not see that the crowd is growing impatient? There is no greater sin in this opera house than an awkward delay in the performance.
If the defense is unable to make further effective arguments, we will move on to the next stage of the trial.
Hold on a second. Hold it.
Lenny was not in the tunnel at that moment, which gave our criminal ample time. The sound we heard may have come from a clash between the missing Halsey and the criminal. The deceased's name is Cowell, Lenny's assistant. He would have been able to tamper with the equipment.
It's the water, right?
The vase was not broken by chance. It was used to cover important evidence. The water.
Water?
Oh, Paimon gets it! It all comes together if Halsey disappeared instead of being kidnapped. Lynette escaped from the water tank, vanishing gradually and leaving only clothes behind. If there's a similar method where a person could be transformed into water...
Oh, just a moment, please. I do hope you know how preposterous you sound at the moment. How could a person ever be transformed into water? This is reality we're talking about here, not some magic trick.
I request that we examine Cal's personal effects.
Must we really? I should think that of anyone. Your friend Linny already knows this truth very well. Magic tricks are ultimately just illusions and misdirection. But Halsey's disappearance is very real. We're talking about 2 completely different things.
Even so, I trust the traveler's judgment.
Ah, there we go.
The truth must be out there somewhere. Perhaps some new line of reasoning may open if we try to gather all the focal points that don't make sense. Since Cal was the deceased, we haven't placed much attention on him. But given that we aren't making much progress with the case, it wouldn't hurt to have a look at his belongings, would it?
People really do come up with all sorts of harebrained schemes when at the end of their rope. The way I see it, your suggestion that we broaden the scope of our investigation is nothing but a tactic for stalling the trial.
Nevertheless, I believe that this is a reasonable request on the part of an attorney. Since the trial does indeed appear to be at an impasse, I believe that additional evidence may help us make more progress. Guards, please step into the lounge and examine the personal effects of the deceased Cowell.
After some time, a guard returns with news.
We are still examining the items, but we have already made critical progress that we feel must be shared with everyone post-haste. We discovered several test tubes of fluid within Cowell's baggage, each labeled separately. The notebook in his backpack claims that these fluids are water from the primordial sea.
The primordial sea?
The note's contents also indicate that Cowell belonged to an organization that sells illegal drugs and that he had an accomplice. The notebook has many entries concerning safe usage of these fluids, in which the keyword dissolve appears many times. One of these tubes was labeled Opera Epiclese, along with yesterday's date. It is empty. The notes also state that these dissolution properties work exclusively on people from Fontaine. It's likely that Halsey was chosen as some sort of test subject.
Oh!
As such, we believe that the defense's hypothesis is, in fact, supported by sufficient evidence.
So Halsey just is dissolved into water. Okay.
You gotta be kidding! People dissolving into water?
Could something so ridiculous actually be true?
Wait a moment. This reminds me of a certain prophecy, but it's just a coincidence, isn't it?
Huh. If people can become water, does that mean that the water tank's real use was as a means to hide water stains? And if Cowell was targeting that girl... Wait just a minute. Could that mean... You two, with me, quick!
Demoiselle, wait! What about your partners?
Let's go. Just trust me.
Order! Order!
Oh, it wasn't a gavel, that was a cane!
It is undeniable that further examination of the deceased's personal effects has yielded some surprising results, but we cannot yet verify the veracity of these clues. Still, let us assume that these clues are indeed authentic, albeit with the understanding that Ms. Halsey has yet to be found. Guards, please continue examining the items along these lines. Mr. Linney, it appears your hypothesis is supported by the evidence, so please continue speaking.
Of course. Thank you, Your Honor. If we uphold this hypothesis, I believe that many of this case's seemingly unrelated clues can be connected together.
Right! Like the metal hook! That one didn't make sense at all. Let's think about this. Cowell's methods must have something to do with that water from the primordial sea.
Water from the primordial sea. The liquid the guards found in Cowell's luggage seemed to have the ability to dissolve Fontainians into water. Who is the prime suspect? Obviously Cowell.
The deceased's name is Cowell. Now it seems like the hook rope was not meant for another magic trick.
Probably that.
The water from the primordial sea. Lynette was in the magic box on stage the entire time. I remember there was something else within the
It's probably that. There we go.
It's Ace Detective Paimon's time to shine again! In the original plan, Cowell would tamper with the water tank rope and the number selector securing his target. containing Halsey was lowered, the metal hook would retract gradually and pierce the balloon at the top of the box. When the balloon attached to the box popped, the water from the primordial seed inside it would pour down and dissolve Halsey. Afterward, Cowl would enter the tunnel and break the flower vase to conceal the water inside the tunnel, with the remaining evidence being covered up by the water tank on stage. But he encountered something unexpected in the tunnel and wound up being fatally hit by the same water tank he meant to use to cover his tracks.
Huh. That does make sense.
That actually links together a lot of the more confusing pieces of evidence.
Oh dear, what do I do? Even I think they sound convincing now. Have I falsely accused an innocent person? What a humiliation.
Now, it seems like the only point of contention remaining is the exact circumstances that led to Cal's death. His notes mentioned he had an accomplice who could be related to the situation.
On that note, the guards have just contacted me indicating that they uncovered new evidence.
Oh?
I shall now invite him on stage to share it with us.
Thank you, Your Honor. We were just inspecting the luggage of the other people involved in this case. And we found an identical sample of the water from the primordial sea among Linny's personal effects.
Excuse me?
What?
That can't be. Oh, I see. Well, how wonderfully comedic to have your own counterattack only to come back and wound you.
Oh, that was probably placed there as a backup to frame them.
Does this not clear all doubt? My dear citizens, my loyal audience, allow me to present my reasoning and bring this performance to a swift close.
Oh, here we go again.
Linny did not need to take part in the dissolution of the young woman at all. Indeed, he did leave the scene via the vent. Having made modifications to the props beforehand, his accomplice Cowl then caused Halsey to vanish using the water from the primordial sea. But upon his return, in cruel avarice, Linny desired sole credit and prepared to do away with his partner in crime. Ultimately, he knocked Cowl out, and the tool meant to cover the crime up also became a murder weapon. Now, as much as I regret having come to such a viciously straightforward conclusion, it does seem that the famed Fatui is quite the cold-blooded and ruthless organization. Am I right, Mr. Linny?
We've used up all the evidence we collected. There's no way for us to make a rebuttal here. Is this the end of the road?
Oh gosh.
Oh no. Paimon can't think of anything either. It doesn't look like there's any way around this. Seems using the water as new evidence was too good a move. Why did this have to happen now?
I think we've all seen enough now, and we have ample witnesses to my flawless reasoning. I believe this is indeed the finale. Now then, my good, noble Chief Justice, should we not, in your view, move...
Excuse me, everyone, but I must interject.
Oh, okay.
Miss, I must ask you not to shout and to respect the ongoing legal proceedings.
Oh, come on. Don't be hasty. I have a good reason for interrupting, you know. Now, would anyone here like to take a little break from all this debate and see a little magic? I'll show you an amazing trick. One that can bring a young woman who has disappeared back in the flesh, right before your very eyes. Please, do the honors, Mr. Linny, if you would be so kind.
What in the world is she saying?
No offense, miss, but miracles like that are beyond my scope as a magician.
Come on now, don't be silly. Magic is all about misdirection, isn't it? It often conceals the truth while presenting a fascinating illusion. But once everyone believes the illusion, can't magic reveal the truth to them once again? And wouldn't such a trick be the most marvelous finale to today's performance?
Hey, that's one way to egg Linny on to doing it.
Come on, Linny and Lynette. Give it another go. Don't worry. Spina di Rasula has made the necessary arrangements on your behalf. But, as the magic makers and stars of the show, I think I should leave the final performance to you.
I understand.
And voila.
Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, that's Halsey.
Wait, isn't that Halsey? So the whole thing about people dissolving wasn't true after all?
To be clear, I'm only here because this person told me that if I testified, the merit of doing so would lessen my sentence. I was hiding outside this room listening to the proceedings because I was afraid that I would be the one put on trial. I was just feeling happy that no one had noticed me, and then before I knew it, she caught me.
That'll teach you to underestimate us three.
Where should I begin? I'm sorry. I'm the one who killed Cowl. I admit it.
What? Why?
Firstly, my name isn't Halsey. It's Lillian, and I'm originally from Mondstadt. I heard that Linny's show was gonna be a real thriller, but I missed the chance to buy a ticket, so I stole one. That's how I make a living. I steal stuff here and there, and I'd never been caught before. But I was noticed at the harbor a few days ago, and I barely got away. Linny was the one who caught me in the act.
Oh, so you were the let me rephrase. You were the pickpocket back then. Interesting.
Hey, no wonder you look familiar. So you were the thief. Liddy even mentioned that you were pretty skilled.
Well, and I thought that would have been the end of it, but then the number selector chose me. He even mentioned the Fortress of Meripede. That's a prison, isn't it? So you can imagine how shocked I was. I thought he was onto me for sure. So I played along with the show while looking for an opening to flee, but then I got water poured on me for no reason, and then someone jumped into the tunnel to nab me. I wasn't going to take that lying down, so I knocked him out and stuffed him into the box. There was nowhere to run from there, though, so I had to change my clothes and hide in a box containing performance costumes. I slipped out after the first guard arrived at the scene and continued hiding inside the opera house.
Can a person even hide in there?
If they're a practice hand at concealment, probably.
But I swear I didn't know that the water tank would fall down. Really, I swear it. Had I known that, I wouldn't have put him in the magic box. I may be a thief, but I'm no killer.
Well, that makes everything pretty clear now, doesn't it?
Yeah, now it's time to refute the Hydro Archon's previous reasoning.
This time, we need to tell the entire story from Lillian's perspective.
All right. Well, that's not true. I mean, she didn't dissolve. I'm just trying to think what it would be.
The strange sound wasn't from a fight. It was Lillian's attempt to break out when she was frightened.
And fight between Linny and Call, well, that doesn't exist.
The flower vase was not broken to cover anything up, but was smashed during the struggle between Lillian and Cowl.
Linny knocked Call out. No. He got rid of Call as Halsey has appeared unharmed before all of our eyes. As the water from the primordial sea suddenly flooded in, Lillian mistakenly thought that she was about to be arrested and so broke out of the box with immense strength, causing the loud sound. Now it seems Lillian and Call did not conspire to break the flower vase to cover anything up, but it was smashed during the struggle between Lillian and Call. Oh, so that's they actually update the descriptions. Okay. A meticulous designed magic prop activated causing the water tank to crash down and make everything seem like an accident. Lenny entered the tunnel. I mean, yeah, we know about that. Well, it wasn't Lenny. So what did Halsey do? Change her clothes.
Lillian was afraid that she would be recognized if she left, so she changed clothes and hid, biding her time. Just what one might expect of an experienced thief.
And it's Ace Detective Paimon time! Having been selected out of the blue, Lillian panicked. Her panic only intensified after she entered the tunnel and had water poured on her head. So she kicked the door open, producing the thud we all heard. Hearing the commotion, Cowell leapt into the tunnel, only to discover that Lillian had not dissolved. He did not know that Lillian was not from Fontaine, but was a thief who made her way in by stealing a ticket.
That explains why the water just didn't work on her then, because, well, she's from Mondstadt.
Mistakenly believing that the water from the primordial sea needed time to take effect, he tried to force Lillian back into the box. The two broke the flower vase during the struggle, but Lillian came out on top, knocking Cowell out and putting him in the box. With no way of escaping, she changed her clothes and hid in the costume trunk until the performance ended.
There we go.
She knew that she would have to go through guard inspection if she tried to leave afterward. So, she has been trapped in the Opera House these last 2 days.
She had already become desperately hungry by the time we were chatting over macarons. So, she swiped 2 of them right under our noses. Talk about a sneaky thief.
Dang, she really managed to pilfer them.
At this point, all the events that happened in the tunnel have now come to light.
Ah, so that's the whole story.
Bravo! Bravo!
Now then, Lady Farina, do you wish to speak against the defense's statements?
I mean, how could you refute that, though? That's pretty condemning evidence, right?
Please answer the question, Lady Farina. Also, if I may add, the trial has not yet ended. As such, I request that the prosecution not leave the room before the proceedings have concluded.
What, are you reading my mind now?
Whoa, you are trying to dip on out of here, Missy!
No, I have no further arguments. I admit defeat. But really, could you at least have left me with some dignity?
Wow, look at that! She's like a deflated balloon now.
If there are no objections, then as the Chief Justice of Fontaine, I shall once again repeat the full sequence of events. The actual perpetrator of the serial disappearances, Cowell, selected his next victim from the audience reservation list. With some modifications to the selector, he could ensure that the pre-selected young woman would be chosen. To cover up any evidence while committing the deed, Cowell thought of allowing the water tank to fall, which would conceal the water left behind after the young woman was dissolved. He also tampered with the rope suspending the water tank, using the fireworks at the end of the performance to cause the tank to drop and hide the watermarks. He poured the water from the primordial sea into a balloon during the preparation of the magic box and stuck it to the box's lid. Finally, he passed the prepared hook on a rope through the gap in the magic box's door when bringing the young woman to said box. When the magic trick officially began, the box containing the woman was lowered into the tunnel, tightening the hook rope and bursting the balloon containing the water. If all had gone to plan, the young woman would be dissolved at this time. However, Lillian was not from Fontaine, and thus fled the box with a loud noise. Realizing that there was trouble, Cowell entered the tunnel and met Lillian. Thinking that the waters had not yet taken effect, he decided to proceed. However, his opponent was more capable than he thought, and he was overcome, knocked unconscious, and placed into the magic box, and thus became his own final victim. Lillian, according to her own statements, then changed clothes and hid until the performance ended, before hiding in other parts of the opera house. As for Linny, he was in the underground structures within the opera house, and was thus ignorant of these happenings. From this reconstruction of events, we can conclude that Linny, the accused, is in fact innocent.
What an interesting series of events, but that whole water that can dissolve people is very concerning as far as a revelation goes. Because that could be abused. I mean, it was going to try to be abused by Cowell, and it probably has been abused by others. Which is definitely going to leave things for a bit more of a darker turn. I mean, not that it already isn't.
While there is much in Linny and Lillian's conduct that should still be investigated separately, this case, at least, can be handed over to the Oratrice to make the final decision. As such, Linny and Lynette are officially declared not guilty.
Great work, partners.
I'll also say that this series of events also really helped Paimon's personality shine through, because it was just very Paimon, right? Like, she was very much into her new little novel hobby of, well, reading mystery works, right? And she got very into playing the part of a detective, that she just was super into it. And I just loved how enthusiastic she was about the whole ordeal, right? It was just so enjoyable. See, like, moments like this is when I could appreciate Paimon as a character, right? When she's not just being a mouthpiece, and a mouthpiece only, when she's, like, her own thing, I really enjoy it. And she had points like that in Sumeru as well. She wasn't only that, but there were times that it kind of regressed a bit and went backwards. And I could only hope that maybe, considering the fact that, you know, we're in the Fifth Nation, maybe she could be written in more like this. Not always lighthearted like this, of course, but Paimon being a part of the light that shines through, like, dark moments, right, like this. Because what happened was pretty grim, right? It's something that adds to her. Like, that's a part of what makes her character appealing. And I want her to be, again, more of a character than just there to speak for the Traveler. And adding in that little moment of, like, the Traveler prefers Paimon to talk also adds to it. That's fine. I've always known that was a thing anyway between them. I mean, that's something in their voice lines anyway. But I still really like it. I think Paimon's well written this time around in this current series of events. But we'll see if that, again, follows through with it. But currently, a thumbs up from me. No, seriously, a thumbs up.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Let's not celebrate just yet. Plus, I enjoyed the glasses gag too. It was nice for some comedic relief.
Next, I think we deserve an explanation, Guard Vaughn. How did you find the water from the primordial sea in Linny's baggage?
Right! Your discovery caused me to make a serious mistake, you know. Or was that not a discovery, but false evidence that you dare to bring before this court?
I suspect that the accomplice mentioned in Cowell's notes was not Linny, but you, yes?
Oh, it mayhaps have been that.
I'm sure you know what you must do to lessen your sentence.
Speak quickly! Unless you want to earn yourself a one-way ticket to Coupon Town.
I was just following orders. We were supposed to place blame for the serial disappearances onto Linny, and thus cause suspicion to fall on the Fatui. The higher-ups said this was the best opportunity to do so.
And now that your plan has fallen through, and the secrets of the water have been revealed, you have become a liability to said higher-ups, yes? Therefore, you would be wise to tell everything you know, and seek the protection of the guards.
Yes, I'll tell you everything I know. Our boss discovered that the water can cause people to dissolve. It can also be made into a potion, which when extremely diluted, can cause people to experience unforgettable exhilaration. We've been in this business for a while now, and have made decent mora off it. The disappearances were also the boss's idea. I mean, this is the boss we're talking about.
Oh, I guess he got dissolved.
What?
He turned into water. Oh, okay.
And now he can no longer talk.
Such ruthlessness. I shouldn't have expected any less of them.
Who?
An outrageous act. All present, please submit to inspection immediately.
However, nothing is found on the scene apart from the liquid left behind after Vogue dissolved.
So, we're just going back now?
The problem seems to have been solved for now.
That's true, but...
There's kind of a new case afoot, though. Like, what happened with that? What kind of thing was planning on him to just trigger? That's like the equivalent of a kill switch.
Traveler, Paimon, please wait.
Ellipses.
Winnie...
I know you may not want to speak to me right now. Maybe you don't even want to look at me. But still, let me thank you again for defending me to the end, even after you learned that I'm a member of the Fatui.
I just didn't want to see anyone be falsely accused.
I guess. But regardless, I'd like the opportunity to set things straight. I didn't approach you with any ulterior motives or ill intent. I've spoken to you as myself, just plain Linny this entire time. As for why I'm a Fatus, it's because the goals of the House of the Hearth align with those of an orphan like me. That's all.
Oh, so this is probably to do with Arlecchino then, right? AKA the Knave? Because I do remember hearing some tidbits to do with them, well, essentially having their own orphanage. So I suppose the House of Hearth is the official naming of it? So then that also begs the question, are they the reason that the orphans are, well, orphaned, or did she rescue them from a moment of dire straits? Because that's the thing when it comes to the Fatui. A lot of that is rather morally ambiguous. Like, it's very much in the grey area, right? And as much as I could take, well, Tertalia's or Wander's word about them, I don't know if those two are exactly the best judge of character at times, right? Because, well, that's just basing off of just two individuals. Because I know a lot of the Harbingers just quite simply don't like each other.
That was how Father, who you might know as the Knave, approached recruiting us back then too.
I was right on the money. Nice.
The Knave? The one who controls the House of the Hearth? She's your father?
That's right. And since we're here, I was wondering, would you mind hearing a story? It's about my past. Back when our parents first died, Lynette and I were left wandering the streets. To survive, I took to surreptitiously observing an older street performer who did magic, It took me several days to figure out how he pulled off his amazing tricks. I took my sister through several streets until we found a crowded corner, and we began to perform magic tricks there. To my surprise, we proved to be pretty popular, and we could at least stop worrying about where our next meal would come from for a time. But I didn't want my sister to remain a street rat together with me forever. Before long, an aristocrat came to me and claimed that he wished to take us in after watching my performances.
So you went from orphans to nobility just like that?
That was how we felt at first, too. As if fate was on our side and we could say goodbye to those painful days. But I gradually discovered that while we were called foster children, he was really after my talent for magic tricks. He would constantly take me to all sorts of banquets to garner attention, which he would then use to expand his social circles.
That doesn't seem too bad either. Better than roaming the streets at any rate.
Yeah, but at that point, he's not really treated as a person, more like a trophy to be bragged about, right?
It took a while for me to realize just how dark his heart really was. After one particular performance at a banquet, I discovered that Lynette was not on the same return vehicle as me. I waited a long time after we returned home, but she did not come back. I went to that noble's bedroom and asked him about her whereabouts. The answer he gave me was, she caught the eye of the most eminent person at the banquet, so I sent her over as a gift. I mean, you'll be able to perform your magic regardless of who your assistant is, yes?
Oh no. So he was gonna...
So he pawned her off.
But wouldn't Fontaine's laws deal with such people?
As far as outsiders are concerned, this is a relationship akin to adoption or foster care, and they have their ways of escaping the eye of the law.
Yeah, absolute villains.
I managed to ferret out the location of the mansion of that so-called eminent person and hurried through the night. But by the time I leaped over the walls, avoided the guards, and made my way in, all I saw was the moonlit ground covered in blood, and the knave standing there in the darkness.
Oh, so that's how you... Yeah, okay. So, I mean, they got orphaned through a more direct means.
So, she'd already taken care of that guy.
That's right. She had rescued my sister before she could come to any harm, and had even discovered several girls hidden in a basement, all of them orphans.
I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, here's the thing. Well, as much as I want to point fingers at Arlecchino and say, like, oh, she's a bad person based off description, right? The thing is, though, that you have to think about in a way, other than maybe Dottore, right, who's pretty much irredeemably horrible, like, I do not see a way to redeem that guy from, like, a story standpoint, and I think that's fine. The thing is, right, Child has some redeeming qualities, despite the whole wanting to drown Leela stuff. Scaramouche, it's a bit hard. Like, similarly to Ajax, they've done some pretty horrific things. One could argue Scaramouche has done some more horrible things that are technically mentioned. And I mean, he was perfectly... But, you know, he was also deceived, right? Like, he would have never done those things had he not been deceived. Maybe. Who knows? But that's what happened. It's cause and effect, right? Obviously, it was a cascade effect from Dottore. But when it comes down to, well, I would suppose Arlecchino, we only have that description to go off of, right? So that's a curious subject. Like, yes, she ended that aristocrat's life, right? Like, that's no way about it. But one, it could also be done in the line of work, and two, maybe this is her way of saving them in a way that only she knows. Like, maybe she's not as bad. She certainly looks the part, though. Suffice to say, she certainly does look the part from what I remember seeing her design at the Vitui banquet. But then again, they all look kind of bad, right? So it's not really anything else to really hold against her, but I am curious to see what her story will be like. I don't really mind if she's truly evil either way, because honestly, I think it's fine to have characters like that anyway. But we'll see, we'll see. I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt when it comes to being maybe a somewhat redeemable person, because we don't know all too much yet. But if we don't have anything to go on, then again, I'm fine with it. You don't need every character to be redeemable, and not every single Harbinger needs to be playable either.
Father, I mean, the knave, might have seen something in me, and so she made me an offer.
Oh?
The House of the Hearth welcomes you, for your interests align with ours. Here, none will ever betray you. Indeed, betrayal shall never be permitted here. I was hesitant to trust her. I mean, I had just been betrayed by nobles. But she was also quick to destroy the noble who had taken us in at first, giving us back our freedom.
Oh, so that's how the two of you joined the House of the Hearth.
That's all in the past, though. Yeah, it is very much past tense.
She has her own plans. She has gained permission from the Tsaritsa to first use the Gnosis' power when she obtains it. She plans to use it to find a way to break the prophecy and save Fontaine.
That's quite noble of her.
So, she believes in that prophecy too?
That's right. The whole House of the Hearth is currently working to combat that crisis. Today's case has also proven that people from Fontaine can indeed dissolve into some sort of water, thus further supporting the prophecy. All of us house members here, Lady Arlecchino herself included, are from Fontaine. We won't give up on defending our homeland.
Oh, it's pronounced as Arlecchino. I thought it was Arlecchino.
To us orphans, the only connection we have left to this world, apart from our family, is our homeland.
So, from small deeds like distributing magic pockets to huge schemes like stealing a Gnosis, everything is aimed at dealing with that prophecy.
I'm sorry, but I still can't completely trust you.
It's all right. I understand. The only thing I can do is relate all this to you. I just hope you can understand that even as a member of the House, I have never stopped making my own decisions, and that I believe what I'm doing is right. If you should need anything at all in the future, feel free to find me. I will do my best to help you, as plain Linny.
I understand. Goodbye.
Bye, Linny!
We'll leave the Upper House next time. This was a very chunky endeavor. While we could have definitely left it off during one of the intermissionary periods of the trial, I wanted to see the whole thing through, and honestly, we got a lot to go by. I'm really enjoying Fontaine's different way of storytelling, I'll say that much. Because again, it's completely different in atmosphere, theming, and how everything is, and well, that's one of the biggest strengths of this title, is how they approach things differently with the nations. I feel like Sumeru's definitely been a step in the right direction in achieving that, though, because, well, Inazuma was definitely a start to having the Archon in a more antagonistical role. As I would say that Inazuma was a good thing in theory, but the length didn't do it favors. Sumeru definitely cemented it as something that Genshin was definitely trying something different with more time spent into it, though. Also, I didn't mean to tap the elemental skill there. Whoops-a-doodle. But when it comes down to that, Fontaine is definitely further cementing that they are just further implementing their own ways to achieve how things are. Because now they're also shining on a branch of the Fatui organization that might not necessarily be as bad, or at least maybe a bit more morally grey when it comes down to it. And that's so interesting to me. Because not only do we have how the whole cultural differences of how Fontaine does things, and how it's just a completely different way of storytelling, with its own set of mechanics, by the way, for the series of things, although it seems to be more of like a sub-branch of the whole thinking mechanic that Sumeru had. But we also got a new exploration mechanic in the swimming to offset the climbing mechanic that Sumeru had with the grapple hook system, right? I just think it's really good. It's very inventive, and it adds to the freshness of the experience. And honestly, if Genshin keeps going down this route where things are quite a ways different, but with just overall consistent quality, if it ends up being better and better, then fantastic. But I'm all for it. I'm all for it, especially if Paimon stays relatively consistent. If Paimon doesn't just become a mouthpiece, I'm sure at times she will, right? I'm sure they'll lean a bit into it to, like, recap certain things. Fine, whatever. But I also think a character like Charlotte is a very good means to do that, to utilize that too, because she's a news reporter. It's her job. It's in her description. That makes perfect sense for her to be utilized as a recap plot device, right? So I kind of like that a bit more than just having one of our main on-screen characters as such. But I digress. We're not done with Fontaine's first part of the Arcade quest yet anyway, so I'll further, like, share some of my thoughts, but this is what I currently have that's, you know, relatively fresh in mind, and honestly, I'm just really enjoying Fontaine, right? Like, I won't really jump the gun yet and say that I like it more than X, Y, or B for now, because it's very different, and I want to see if it sticks the landing. Because so far, very strong first impressions. Very, very strong. But anyway, folks, thank you all for watching this here episode of Genshin Impact, and I'll see you all next time as we continue our journey through Teyvat. Ta-ta for now.